In the 17th century, a method of turning church bells through a full circle with wheel and rope was developed. From this evolved the practice of not merely ringing a fixed pattern of notes with different bells, but of changing the order in which they were rung, so that an almost infinite variety of note patterns could be obtained. So let's see some of today's bell ringers in action.
Treble's going, she's gone.
Keeping an eye on proceedings in the ringing chamber is Karen.
I'm the ringing master, and that means that when we're actually ringing, whether on a Sunday morning or at practice nights or any other time, I'm the person who organises the ringing, deciding what we're going to ring and who's ringing which bell.
A fixed camera placed up in the bell chamber for the benefit of visitors allows us to see the bells in action on a monitor without having to stand too close for comfort.
Here at Christchurch we've got a good team of people, all sorts of ages, ranging from 16 to, well, let's just say well over 70, shall we, and be diplomatic. A very interesting mix of people coming from all walks of life. And we do just enjoy being together and learning together, and most of all, ringing the bells together.
One of the longest serving bell ringers is Mike.
I learned to ring about 60 years ago, but really I've been ringing continuously for about 55 years. My father taught me, he was ringing master here. My grandfather was ringing master before him, and he learned to ring in Derbyshire, taught by my great-grandfather, and his father, my great-great-grandfather, taught him to ring. So I'm the 5th generation, so it's a huge family thing for me, and something I'm very proud of. This is a model of one of the bells upstairs. The bell is attached to a headstock, which is attached to the wheel, and there's a rope attached to the wheel. On the other side of the headstock is a piece of wood, which is called a stay, and this engages with another piece of wood called the slider. When we arrive in the belfry to begin ringing, all the bells are hanging downwards for safety, and before we start we have to raise them into the upright position, and we do this by swinging the bell backwards and forwards till eventually it stands in the vertical position. This means that when the bell rope is pulled, the bell starts ringing straight away. Each time the rope is pulled, the bell revolves 360 degrees to the vertical position, and then the rope is pulled back again and goes round to the vertical position. Now the bell ringer has no control over the bell once the bell is starting to move and completing a full circle. They can hold the bell in the vertical position to make it wait, or they can restrict the bell so it doesn't quite reach the vertical position. By doing this, they can ring a little bit faster and a little bit slower.
When we're ringing, there are two parts to our ringing action. The bell has two different strokes because it turns full circle, but we can hold it on its balance point. The first part is when our arms are right up in the air and we just have hold the very end of the rope. We call it the tail end. And we pull that down, and that's the backstroke when it's coming back down to us. And then you'll have noticed a long, stripy, fluffy bit in the middle of the rope, which we call the sally. When we catch that, we call it the hand stroke. So we handle the sally, let it go, and then back down with the backstroke.
The tower was built in 1786, and the first 6 bells, which were due to be put in the tower, were lost at sea on their way from Whitechapel Foundry. A second set of bells had to be recast, and they arrived in a ship called the Happy Return in 1787. 2 more bells were added in 1874, and then 2 more bells in 1878, giving us a ring of 10 bells. The lightest bell is 400 weights, and the heaviest bell is 1600 weights. And bells are always measured in old measures, 100 weights, quarters and pounds. I suppose in today's measure, the heaviest bell is about 3/4 of a metric ton.
This is almost like a kind of ringer's Bible once you start ringing changes. This is the book of diagrams. And inside, it's full of diagrams of methods we can ring. Here are some of the ones we can ring on 5 bells. And then it's got some you can ring on 6. And if you look at the numbers, you can see that we always start off going from 1 to 6 if there are 6 ringing, and everybody swaps places, but you can only move 1 place. Somebody once described it as intricate dancing steps, but using your bells. To ring these methods, we have to be able to change places with each other, and we do this by holding the bell on its balance point. When we ring, we start off ringing from the highest note bell to the lowest, and we call them 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. When we want to do some ringing, we often will call the changes out to swap pairs of bells. So we would call 2 to 3, and then the 2 would follow the 3rd. So instead of 1, 2, 3, you would get 1, 3, 2. And we call that call changes, which is how everybody starts ringing.
We ring for Sunday services and any other church occasions we are asked to ring for, but we also ring for national events such as royal weddings, coronations, funerals of prominent people and royalty, of course. And we've been doing this now for over 200 years. On other special occasions, on New Year's Eve, when we ring the old year out and ring the new year in, which is always a very pleasant occasion attended by friends and family.
Yeah, so we'll leave it up for a little bit just in case. Meanwhile, Ian will enjoy the whole experience.